So this is ORSZCA, the work plan for 2022 to 2025, which we know is when the GAP-D was originally intended to cover. So if we could go to the next slide, starting with the problem. And the problem is that since 2004, it's been 18 years effectively since zinc was recommended by WHO and UNICEF to be included in addition to ORS to treat diarrhea, to treat childhood diarrhea. 18 years on, the coverage of ORS and zinc combined is stuck at 15% in LMICs, which is a slightly shocking number. I think we can all agree, and miles away from 90% coverage target that the GAP-D set out back in 2013. Actually, on current trends, it would take decades and decades to reach that level of coverage. So it's clearly unacceptable, and a step change is required to accelerate coverage before 2025. If we can go to the next slide, what this has translated into is also a very important but still slightly disappointing decline in diarrhea-led mortality. Still 500,000 deaths, child deaths from diarrhea. On current trends, the GAP-D targets of 1 child diarrhea deaths per 1,000 live births will not be reached until 2035, possibly beyond that. So clearly, something is required to accelerate progress. And we, in that alliance, certainly believe that the co-packaging of ORS and zinc could provide the step change required to accelerate the coverage of these two essential commodities combined and improve compliance with the recommended treatment for childhood diarrhea. If we can go to the next slide. Thank you. And to be absolutely clear, diarrhea is a complex set of pathologies with a variety of different pathogens that can cause it. There is no single silver bullet, and a range of high impact interventions are required to beat it globally. Access to clean water and sanitation, of course, we know is incredibly important. Exclusive breastfeeding until 6 months, complementary breastfeeding until 2 years, vaccination, and in particular rotavirus vaccine, the coverage of which is still way too low, as you all know, below 50% globally. So a range of things are required, but we do believe that the co-packaging of ORS and zinc to accelerate coverage from the current 15% to something along the lines of the 75% required to reach the GAP-D target by 2025 is needed and could be, and probably will be, that step change. So with that in mind, we've developed a work plan, which is very much two-pronged, with a global agenda as well, underpinned by a very, very strong kind of country-led focus. So if I can go to the next slide. Thank you. And I think that to kind of underline that, 70% of child diarrhea deaths are concentrated in 10 high burden countries. I think, as we've seen with other global campaigns targeting specific infectious diseases, really, really important for any global campaign, any global initiative to be underpinned by an even stronger set of national campaigns and initiatives in the high burden countries, which are listed below. If we could move on to the next slide. Thank you. And these are the two strands, as it were, the two kind of big work streams that we are putting forward as ORSZCA for the next strategy period, 2022 to 2025. So the global activities will include things like building a global network to kind of promote the rapid adoption of new ORS and zinc co-pack recommendations, advocating for the rapid adoption of co-packaging through social networks and media and the like, creating, maintaining, curating data and evidence on the coverage, the impact, the acceptability, the compliance with joint treatment with ORS and zinc, encouraging co-pack research, for example, around health-seeking behaviors, the use of antibiotics, and so on and so forth. Scanning for mentions of diarrhea treatment to check the compliance with the co-packaging recommendations, engaging with non-compliant initiatives to kind of bring them towards compliance. And crucially, being a really strong partner of WHO and UNICEF to kind of publish and circulate guidance to countries that detail the benefits of co-packaging versus separate procurement of the two commodities, and to publish global and national estimates of ORS and zinc coverage, combined coverage, which we know is lacking. And to come back to Malia's point around the importance of strong data, that's definitely a huge issue in that space, and something that we would like to work with UNICEF and WHO and many other partners, including the ones present here, to try and resolve. Also encouraging and supporting the UNICEF supply division to adopt percentage targets on the percentage of ORS and zinc that is distributed through co-packs versus separately. And that's something we've already started, and the re-tendering process led by the UNICEF supply division, it has just started, and we've already engaged with UNICEF to kind of ensure that that this re-tendering process will benefit co-packaging in a really substantive way. And finally, engaging the DHS, the Demographic and Health Survey, which, as you all know, is a kind of a flagship set of national surveys supported by USAID to explore the possibility of modifying the question to include ORS and zinc treatment on diarrhea. So this has got to be underpinned, as I said, by a set of really, really strong national campaigns and initiatives. In the 10 high burden countries that I cited earlier, that were shown earlier rather, establishing a network of really strong national ORS and zinc observers to understand the local process for updating the national medicines list, to kind of monitor the presence of ORS and zinc co-packs on the national essential medicine list, which we know is a very, very important kind of systemic change that needs to take place to facilitate the adoption of co-packs at the national level. Also to monitor the presence and the prices of ORS and zinc co-packs in the market, to understand the local manufacturing landscape as well of co-packs, and ensuring that as many providers can supply to the market to drive down the cost and increase coverage. Also, very, very importantly, at the country level, engaging with UNICEF country offices in these top kind of high burden countries to encourage dialogue with the national and the local MOH and other constituencies to kind of promote the adoption of ORS and zinc co-packaging. And also to provide online support for local and for national level champions, very much in the likes of the one that Dr. Ahmed talked about earlier. Really important to have these kind of national champions who are known to the public, who have that influence and that gravitas, and can support this agenda through their networks and influence. So I'll stop there. This is the work plan that we have, and which we will be kind of holding ourselves accountable to over the next 4 years. We very much count on your support to kind of drive that agenda. So I'll stop there for now, and I think we will now move on to questions and answers.